Welcome back to the news. Today we have got fairly major, pivotal stuff to talk about, even a new game mode for World of Warcraft that might be spooky. And also, if you weren't there for Legion, you seriously missed out. I mean, to this day, Blizzard hasn't released an expansion with, I guess, as much like content or just vibes so absolutely perfect. I mean, just go to Antorus right now. It's so damn cool. And that's why I come to you with fairly amazing news. Legion Remix had already been confirmed, but better yet, it sounds like Blizzard, because they've given us new updates about it, have learned their lessons from Pandaria. But even more important than that, they're running experiments that will change World of Warcraft forever. That sounds like an oversell, but honestly, I don't think it is. Now in-game, if your character's using bad trinkets, it's just going to do no damage. It's a bit like that IRL. So I've got an upgrade for your trinket slot, and it is this from our sponsor UGREEN, and I use mine literally every day. This is the Revodok Pro 106. And you know what, right? It's those small day-to-day things that matter, and I am so done being constantly mildly annoyed by dongles that aren't good. So here's why this thing rocks, right? It's got all the ports that you would want: 2 USB-C, 2 USB-A, and HDMI. So often with docks, you get trade-offs. Ports don't actually work as expected. Here, you get 4K 60. All 4 USB ports are 10 gigabits, so your file transfers are fast, and it will even fast charge your laptop with pass-through power through the 100-watt USB-C power delivery port, which is awesome. And I literally run everything from my laptop, right? I dock it all the time. It's great. So having one of these is absolutely a massive upgrade for me. And of course, you know, well, I do main UGREEN's chargers for everything, and I've actually recently just got their vertical mouse and their microphone. I've got to say as well, vertical mouse, this is so cool. I've never used one before, but yeah, it's straight up. Like, this is the angle your wrist is naturally at, instead of how we bend it to the side. Really neat. I see why people swear by them. I straight up use their kit every day. It's no wonder they've crossed 200 million users, because basically they are absolute price to performance kings. Check out the links down below. Big thanks to them for sponsoring. In Mythic Pandaria Remix, we were sent to the past as observers, but in Legion Remix, things have actually changed. They're introducing what they call the Shattered Timeline, and it's a system a bit like Diablo's World Tiers. So, in an alternative timeline where things went a hell of a lot worse, the whole just mountain of world content the Legion had will be significantly more difficult. Now, they haven't said exactly what that means. They're still figuring most of that out, but I think it's no coincidence that it comes now. Most of our major complaints with WoW recently have been how samey the world content is. And we can put some pieces together here. In 11.1.7, Blizzard are adding the Rotation Assistant and the one-button version of it. Now we see them experiment with the idea of a world tier, again, borrowed from Diablo. And if we connect the dots here, making world content harder might be their plan to fix that problem of it just being boring and samey. But maybe them doing that without making it exclusive to just the sweatier players, which was always the boundary, the thing that they felt they couldn't do. And this test run will essentially let them know if that works before they hard commit with the main game. Now, if you're not familiar with Diablo's world tiers, I'll explain it, right? So imagine you have a button that basically makes every enemy in the world scale up, but also grant more XP, more gold, better gear, and maybe the odd thing that's rare or different in a higher world tier. That's basically what's going on. So theoretically, this Shattered Timeline is a different phase with much tougher enemies and with rewards scaled up to match that. And that would mean that instead of complete effortless, walking over mobs like we usually do, you'd have an actual game to play. Isn't that wild? Of course, it helps that Legion is when WoW really pushed to make world content more interesting. It's the expansion where we got world quests. They kind of threw in everything plus the kitchen sink to find out what players liked. And for a piece of content like this, it helps that the Broken Isles were small by today's standards, but were incredibly dense. I suppose it was the final form of WoW's theme park style of world. So fighting all the quest bosses, the rares, harder world content enemies, and all that with the Shattered Timeline scaling could be genuinely fun, like a massive big pre-expansion event, but one that actually matters. Now, I don't want to let expectations run too wild here. It's probably not going to be some massive new scaling system. There's probably not going to be tons of totally redesigned new content. If they're adding mechanics, they'll probably be in the form of affixes or random additions, I guess mop remix style things. And of course, whether this is actually fun will depend on how Blizzard gets all of the details. But if they do get the experience and the gear scaling right, this could be fairly strong. It could even give you a harder and a faster way to level, which is not what we normally get. or maybe even fix one of Mop Remix's biggest problems, which of course was that it was totally locked off, that those characters were locked away in Mop land. If you had a main that you really wanted to play, Mop Remix didn't do anything for you. Well, maybe with how this Legion Remix is going to go, you and an existing max level character could go do this content, gear your character up, and maybe, right, with being able to crank up the world tier, actually get some properly hard stuff done, instead of only having to rely on, say, dungeons and raid spam to get your gear. It's all fairly interesting, but speaking of dungeons and raids to spam, well, is our next topic. Remember how crazy things got in Mop Remix when everyone had gotten gear, gotten all the gems, and it was just totally busted? Now, it was a shame that there was no Mythic Plus for people to push their broken builds to the absolute limits in. Well, it's a good thing we're going to Legion, because Blizzard have confirmed that Mythic Plus for Legion will be active. Specifically, it'll be active so that we can be let loose on the infinite scaling. Now, sadly, they didn't confirm if it would be the original Mythic Plus or just like a recreation using the modern Mythic Plus system. Who knows? I mean, all of that old data would maybe need to be re-added to the game. And if they do that, I'd definitely be worried about things going wrong or breaking. But I suppose there was the Legion Mythic Plus event thing that they did a little while ago. Either way, Legion's Mythic Plus dungeons were an absolute goddamn blast at the time, so no matter what, I think this will actually be fun, especially with artifact weapons, but unfortunately, we've got no news on how artifact weapons are going to be going just yet. There's a lot they didn't talk about, and Jeremy promised a much bigger info dump later. It might be, say, this June at Summer Games Fest, so we will get more info, things like, say, artifact weapons and how they will work. Now, back in the day, leveling up artifact weapons and unlocking all the crazy passives was a huge amount of what made Legion fun. But so many things from artifact weapons are actually baked into our classes now, so if you just threw them back, it would probably be, well, either boring or complete sheer havoc breaking the game. Who really knows? Hopefully then, Blizzard will be able to give us artifact weapons in a way that maybe is not exactly the same, but that feels right. I mean, it wouldn't be Legion if Ret Paladins weren't running about the place with a totally juiced up Ashbringer. And a new incarnation of these would be the perfect opportunity for people to, say, unlock the hidden artifact appearances that already exist in the game, or for Blizzard to just add new ones entirely. Those would all majorly drive game time. I mean, just look what happened when people realized they could get different Shadowpan sets in Mob. I think this would do real well for them. Then on top of all that, there's huge potential with Legion Fall as well. So toward the end of Legion, we got an endlessly scaling buff that was called Concordance of the Legion Fall. It basically procced gigantic amounts of your main stat. It was pretty goofy, honestly. It was pretty goofy, pretty busted, but it did end up being really fun. If you want to log into an RPG and get more powerful over time, it certainly did accomplish that. Now, when we reached the last few months of Legion, we were just having the time of our lives. It was crazy. Blizzard leaning in on that for our remix scaling would be fantastic. But that's not all. The other thing in my mind is how they will handle Suramar. Many people still consider it to be one of the best questing experiences WoW has ever had, rightly so, but at the time, it was time-gated to all hell, and to make things worse, it relied on a bunch of progressive systems over time to make it feel natural, sort of like the revolution you were working with was slowly building. Recreating all of that, but without the frustration, is going to be absolutely massive for giving people a true Legion experience, and if Blizzard get it right, it will be a strong marketing element. Again, it's the idea of, hey, did you miss out on this thing? Now you can experience it, like, properly again, and better. But that's still not all, because then there are legendaries. Like with artifact weapons, they were vital to how Legion felt, but Blizzard handled them atrociously at the time. Basically, the way they dropped was so bloody convoluted that at the start, it was faster for people to level a whole new character to level cap if they didn't get their best in slot legendaries first. Yes, that was actually going on. You could literally brick your character for weeks or more with bad RNG. It wasn't fun. But again, most of those legendary things are now part of our class gameplay as talents. So if Blizzard just put the legendaries in again, it would be kind of pointless, because in a few cases we actually already have them. So figuring out how to bring those back without the pain and, with all the pleasure is going to be a little bit make or break. But overall, I think things are looking good. As long as Blizzard makes sure the hours and hours of class hall quest lines are there and are working, that they're relevant to the Shattered timeline, I think Legion Remix sounds like it's going to be fairly amazing, even if they make a few mistakes. Even simple things like people being able to go and unlock their class mounts, but in a way that's not just farming out a bunch of ancient content that immediately falls over when you so much as look at it. There's another layer as well, though, because even if you were there for Legion, it's almost certainly a good time to revisit that story, because we are going to be seeing Illidan again before long. He's almost certainly going to come back in The Last Titan, and of course, The Last Titan is really capping off, well, the story that Legion left off with its finale. All of that's going to be going on, and as well, based on how we expect player housing will work, as you play Legion Remix, you're probably going to do things that will unlock loads of housing stuff, which right now we expect will enter the game in the pre-patch of the Midnight expansion, which is probably going to be just after Legion Remix ends. But what if I told you that wasn't all from PAX? Jeremy also teased a new game mode, and rather than go for another battle royale like with Plunderstorm, they're going for something that is like a, quote, scary story. So the image they used to tease us with here was from Duskwood. That certainly narrows it down. I've got to imagine it'll be set in Duskwood. And if we think about what's going on to sort of inspire Blizzard with recent games like, say, Battle Royales did for Plunderstorm, then we do have a few possibilities. If they wanted to go down the action game PvP route again, they could probably do something like, I don't know, Dead by Daylight, but World of Warcraft. Perhaps spawn in a player or a few as like terrifying enemies like Morladim or a Dark Rider or some crazy Worgen, and then spawn in other players as humans. Maybe the human players would have to stay hidden while doing objectives to escape, while the other enemy players have got to hunt them down across Duskwood or whatever, with maybe some special abilities. But they also may not go for PvP again. There was a little bit of controversy with that in Plunderstorm. But there's not just the likes of Dead by Daylight inspiring them. They may look for some other popular co-op survival games. I think that would be good. People like PvE. You've got examples like Repo or Lethal Company. So I suppose imagine this, right? A game where players have got to fight their way across Duskwoods, towns, and caves to get as much loot as they can before something horrible reaches them. Maybe that's the Emerald Nightmare escaping from the Dream Portal in the zone. Maybe it's a Dark Force growing from Karazhan. Either way, though, I think that high-stakes, risk-it-all game model is taking over the industry for a reason. I think World of Warcraft could do a PvE, fairly approachable version of that, learning some lessons from Plunderstorm in a way that, with Duskwood, would be nostalgic as hell and actually work out quite well. Though there are other angles that wouldn't be as action-y. I mean, another one would be, say, a murder mystery. Maybe something a little bit Among Us inspired, where one player is perhaps a secret Worgen trying to infect the others in Darkshire without being detected. I mean, basically imagine any of these, but maybe with a twist. You could borrow the light mechanic from Season of Discovery's Karazhan Crypts, and then you could make Duskwood pitch black. Give players torches with timers like Blizzard originally planned during the World of Warcraft beta, I mean, the original one in like 2003, 2004, and maybe see how well the whole terror of the original Duskwood holds up, because, let me tell you, back in the day, that place was scary as hell. And honestly, just thinking about the opportunities, I'm really excited. Duskwood was one of my favorite places in the game back in the day. I hope we hear more before long, because this could be a huge growth driver for World of Warcraft, especially if it's the sort of thing that creates those just tense stories that, you kind of only get when you've got a game mode that's got real stakes. I could, I suppose, imagine like the Twitch numbers exploding and it bringing a lot of people into World of Warcraft. Of course, as soon as we know more, we will bring in the news and all of this stuff, but if you want to see one of the new things that's hitting World of Warcraft very soon indeed, check out this video on the new one-button WoW feature and all the stuff that's coming in the next patch.